Assalamu alaikum. That means peace be upon you all in Arabic. That's how we greet each other as Muslims. Welcome everyone to our first Ramadan Iftar in the last few years. I know we did have some of these before when our founder, Mr. Lal Hussain, our late founder, Mr. Lal Hussain, used to run them, and he used to run many events, and many of you will remember him. So welcome all. Welcome, Madam Mayor. Welcome to the local Sutton Police and the new Chief Inspector, and especially all the neighbours. And so thank you all for coming, and the councillors who could make it too. I know there's an election kind of preparation going on, so not all the councillors want to come during this time. I've just got some notes I've made so I don't miss anything out. I think I've done all right so far. I don't want to talk too long because I want to hand you over to these nice people. In amongst sitting amongst you and walking around are some of the trustees of this organisation or the association. So I'm not going to bring them all out by name, but you'll meet them. I think we have 7 trustees altogether at the moment. I'm going to put this down. Yeah, so we've got most of the board of trustees over here. I'm going to ask the chair in a minute, so Dr. Muller, I will ask him to speak, and that will be followed by Sister Olga, who's our treasurer, and then also Brother Iqbal Nassim, who is a former trustee of the association. So he's come back today to talk today. Also, you'll see somewhere, in case you already know him, and he's the most important person kind of amongst us to know, is Yusuf, who's at the door. He's a centre manager, so he's a full-time centre manager at this place. So he left his job kindly to take up a position over here to run this place, and he does a great job, so thank you, Yusuf. And amongst you, we also have our Imam, who's also called Yusuf, and he's standing up there. He's he's new. So he's come all the way from Saudi Arabia. He's Turkish by origin. He's a keen swimmer as well, and he cycles with us, and he does bodybuilding. He probably doesn't want to tell you that. And he's not going to give you a demonstration either, I hope, anyway. He does want to swim in the Thames, he keeps telling me. Before I forget, there are some goodie bags. So, if you wish, we're offering you some bags to take home with you, one per household, I think it is, roughly. They have the Quran in them, they have the centre manager's business card, so you won't forget him. So he's the person to contact if you have any questions, etc. Great. I've already said I'm going to hand you over to the chair, Dr. Muller, and then Olga and Brother Iqbal. You can ask questions at the end. Just a quick word on the agenda. By 8 p.m, the community will probably start coming down. It's a functioning mosque, and there will be the Maghrib prayer, which is the prayer just after sunset. That's performed just after we break our fast. So we break fasts with the dates and water. And you'll see everyone come down for that. Then they'll perform the prayer. You're welcome to stay there and watch. You'll hear the call to prayer, the azan, which many of you have heard before, I'm sure. Once everyone's finished the prayer, then around 8:30 we shall serve dinner, and then that will be sort of leading to the end of the evening. And we do intend to do more of these events as time goes on. So hopefully, we'll invite you and more people, and it won't necessarily be during Ramadan. Okay, so without any further wasting your time, I'm going to hand you over to Dr. Muller.
I think it's already been said, everything. Assalamu alaikum. Madam Mayor, leader of the council, councillors, and everybody else, really. Welcome. I don't know what else to say, really. Olga will tell you more about our organisation and what it is that we do, bearing in mind that this is our community centre, meant for everybody, not just for the Muslim community, but for all those who live in Sutton. And they're always welcome. We've got halls for hire as well, with certain conditions. So remember that, and you can pass that around. If somebody wants to hire the hall, if it's available, we will, under certain conditions, rent it out for however long is needed on a daily basis. I don't think there's anything else I can say. I'll pass you on to Olga, and I'm sure you guys have been fasting all day, and you're not allowed to eat yet until gone 8 o'clock. So tighten your belts, and we'll pass you on to Olga.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Greetings of peace to one and all. So on behalf of the Cross Trustee Board, I'd like to thank you all for attending this evening to break fast with us here at Macross. A little background about Macross. Macross was formed 14 years ago by the late Mr. Lal Hussain, who was actually a former mayor of Sutton. We have been residing in this building since 1996, and in 2013 extensive refurbishment works were done and we extended upstairs. Today the congregation is just over 500 people roughly. It's very hard to keep a full account of obviously of everybody here, of devout Muslims living in Sutton and surrounding areas. The trustee board today is 7, there are 7 of us, and we are elected in to our post by the membership, which is for 2022, 75 members. To give you an idea as to what happens in the centre on a daily basis, so there are 5 congregational prayers that happen throughout the day. There's the Friday congregational prayer as well, which is attended by lots of people. I would say probably 700, 800 people. We also have classes for children who are sort of like 5 to 12 years old, and that takes place 3 evenings a week, and Saturday and Sunday mornings. We also have a ladies' class, a sisters' class on Sunday mornings. We have various youth clubs. We have activities, presentations, workshops, talks, which are attended by the community. And we just host other things as well, social events, so coffee mornings. Mum and toddler groups is starting up again after the pandemic. And we have, like evening nights and table tennis evenings and things like that for the community. We also do quite a lot of work in terms of outreach, so involving the wider community and not just Muslims within this area. As Dr. Miller said, the centre belongs to the community, and there are various things that happen throughout the year here. I just wanted to also mention that at the minute it's very busy here because of Ramadan. So we obviously have iftar in the evenings, but we also have evening prayers, which are attended by a lot of people. But in terms of sort of like community outreach work, we do things like school visits. So since reopening, we've probably had about 6 or 7 school visits. So local schools come in, they learn a bit about Islam, they hear the Azan, they watch the prayer, they listen to some presentations, they do activities and arts and crafts and things like that. So that's been really lovely for the centre to see again. We also have hosted, I think, 3 vaccination hub days upstairs, which was well taken by the wider community. So we handed out leaflets to our neighbours, and we were fully booked. So that was really lovely to see as well. We also have mosque open days, which we're starting up again this year. And I just wanted to mention also that for the 2nd year now in Ramadan, Macross, the community, have raised money to support people in need in the area, so refugees, asylum seekers, the elderly, by way of food packages and daily hot meals. And so last year we raised £10,000. This year we've raised almost £13,000, and that is really benefiting the wider sort of like Sutton and surrounding area communities. So yeah, there is a lot of work that we do here. I just wanted to reiterate what Dr. Gould said, that please feel that you have our doors are open, especially to feedback and to anything that sort of like as our neighbours. we have our Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, basically was narrated. He said that, there was, the angel Gabriel said that, our neighbours are so important to us, but, all we have to be good to our neighbours, that the Prophet thought that he would make our neighbours heirs to the wealth, basically. So it is, very important to us that our neighbours are not inconvenienced and that you feel that you have friends here among us. So that was all I wanted to say, actually, and I'll hand over to Brother Iqbal.
I begin in the name of God. All praise belongs to God, and blessings and peace upon the messenger of God. Peace be upon you all, and the mercy and blessings of God. Really a very warm welcome to all of you. You were told, weren't you, in advance, that you were just going to be talked at for a good 20 minutes, half an hour before eating. So you're all paying a lot of attention. That's good. All right. So I've been tasked to. I'm just checking the time. Okay, yeah, 7:48. So I've been tasked to talk about Islam and Ramadan. That's my title that I was given, and to do that in about 10 minutes, which obviously it's not an easy task in one sense, but it is easy in another sense, because actually it's a lot more simple than people think it is, I'll begin by just translating the word Islam. In fact, let me open it up to you. Might as well get some engagement going. What does the word Islam even mean? Anybody? You get an extra date if you get this right. So what does the word Islam mean? Anyone? Right, so the word Islam means submission. It means submission. Submission, surrender, devotion, commitment. And the point being is that Islam simply means submission, devotion to God. That's what it means. And the interesting thing about the word Islam, according to the Quran, and the Quran we believe as revelation revealed around 1500 years ago to the Prophet Muhammad, in a continuation of revelations or revealed messages by God to humankind, the word Islam, meaning submission to God, which we now consider or think of as a religion, as opposed to Judaism, as opposed to Christianity, as opposed to whatever else, simply carries that meaning. Submission to God. And in fact, what we understand from the Quranic narrative is the fact that this submission to God is the same fundamental submission to God that previous prophets and peoples and communities were invited to. So from our perspective, Abraham was a Muslim, and Moses was a Muslim, and Jesus was a Muslim, in the sense that they were submitted to God. Right? They acknowledged God, they believed in Him. There is only one God. In Arabic, La ilaha illallah. La ilaha means there is no God. Illallah, except for God. Nowadays people just stick with the first part. They just say there is no God, full stop. But we continue to know that there aren't, except for one. There is only one God. We believe that He created us. We believe that God gives life meaning. God gives life a sense of purpose, a sense of direction. Like we have a sense of where we came from and where we are going. And in the Quran, fundamentally what we're told and what Islam, submission to God, devotion to God, commitment to God is all about, is just developing that relationship. Through life we develop all sorts of relationships with our parents, with our siblings, eventually with our spouses, children, neighbours, friends, colleagues, etc., etc. And all God is telling us through the Quranic narrative is, don't forget me. Literally, just don't forget me. In fact, in some verses, you who believe, remember God frequently and glorify Him in the morning and the evening. The people of insight, according to the Quran, are those who remember God whilst they're standing, sitting, or on their sides. And they reflect on the creations of the heaven and earth, and they say, God, you are perfect. You haven't created all of this in vain. Meaning that there is purpose, there is a sense, there is a direction, and there is an intention. And so as believers, we go through life devoting ourselves to Him, and through acts of worship and devotion, but also through the way in which we interact with wider community and the wider society. Again, according to the Quranic narrative, the believers are those who are supposed to, in the community, in society, be people who rectify, who mend, who build, who develop, who bring things together. In Arabic, this is the muslihin, as opposed to, on the other hand, the mufsidin, those who corrupt, who break, who split apart. And when you look at the world today, locally and internationally, you can see, generally speaking, people fall basically somewhere in this spectrum. You're either bringing things together, bringing people together, fixing or mending, or you're disrupting, sometimes in devastating ways. And we are invited to be people who mend, fix, bind, bring together. That's what basically Islam is all about. And so when we think about Islam, we think about 5 pillars, and I'll quickly run through these 5. And in the midst of those is fasting, and so we'll cover that too. And then that's all I'll say. I will just double check the time, because everybody here knows that I go on a bit, Yeah. So Islam, then we talk about the 5 pillars of Islam. So there is this thing called Islam, meaning submission to God, devotion to God, and then there are these pillars, the things that uphold it. So what upholds it? Well, the first thing is what's known in Arabic as the shahada, which is to bear witness. And so, whilst even Muslims sometimes only often associate this with when people, if you like, convert or become Muslim. I actually don't like the word convert to Islam. I just like the word submit to God, because that's basically what's happening. I wasn't before, and now I am. Now I am a Muslim, right? I have submitted, basically. And it's simply to bear witness to that. And so it happens one time, if you like, or the first time in someone's life, either if somebody has been born into a Muslim household, but then at some point they need to figure out things for themselves, and they decide, actually, yes, I do believe that there is a God. I do believe that I'll be resurrected and presented before Him. So I'm going to start taking life a bit more seriously. I submit to Him. I am a Muslim. Or someone else who explores and looks into it and thinks, yeah, this seems like a reasonable account for how to live life, how to go through life, and gives me a sense of what the purpose of my life is. And then for the first time they'll say, I bear witness that there is no God other than God, and that Muhammad is the messenger of God. But as I've mentioned, part of our belief is to recognize all of the messengers, all of the prophets who came and who are associated typically with other traditions, but as far as we're concerned, they're all part of the same message. And so that's the first thing, to bear witness to that. But the point about bearing witness is that it's not a one-time thing. It's a constant thing. There's no point saying that you believe that there's only one God, but then to be rude to your neighbor. There's no point bearing witness that there is to the fact that there is only one God, acknowledging that He is observing you and that you are supposed to devote your life to Him, but then, lying or engaging in any form of kind of corruption, or allowing yourself too easily to fall into temptation, or to be lazy or apathetic when the time is there to come up and do something productive. So all of this is part and parcel of that bearing witness, meaning through our actions, through our words, there should be something distinctive that marks us out as believers, as people of high character, of good standing in the community and in society. And obviously that's not always the case, but then that's just human beings. The point is, this is the standard at least to which we aspire. After that comes the prayer, which has been mentioned, and obviously we're in a place where a lot of prayer takes place. The point about prayer is simply this: on the journey of life, every so often just stop, reorient yourself, redirect yourself, engage in a few moments of what we might call nowadays mindfulness. Right? Just actually shut off from your wider environment that typically just stresses us out, and just engage in some quiet reflection, remembrance and devotion to your Lord. Basically remind yourself who's number one, remind yourself what life is about. I just compare it to a service station break on a long motorway journey. You basically stop for a bit, you get a bit of nourishment, a bit of a refreshment, you kind of refresh yourself a little bit, and then you're back on the road again. That's effectively what the prayer is. It happens, the obligatory prayers, 5 times in the day and night. After that comes the zakat, which is an obligatory form of giving. So basically, again to simplify, I call it a membership fee. You're part of the club, you put into the pot. The pot is gathered, is pulled together, the funds are redistributed to make sure that the needs of the community are met. And so that you're not leaving behind your brothers and sisters who are in difficulty and are in need. Beyond what is obligatory, charity is a huge part of sort of Muslim life. In Ramadan, hundreds of millions of pounds are given just in this country. I think according to a Times article from a few years ago, the Muslim community in the United Kingdom is the most generous community when it comes to giving, if you just look at charitable giving per capita in a year. And so charity is a huge part of our way of life, I suppose, and it is of course all about alleviating the difficulties and the needs of people who are in need. So then fourth is fasting in the month of Ramadan. And of course that's what we're all up to nowadays. And yes, not even water until sunset. And yes, we're alive. Look, I'm happy and I've been fasting since the morning. So it's perfectly possible. It's perfectly possible. And the reason why we fast, God says, you who believe, fasting has been prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you. So again, just like prayer, or just like the testimony of faith that there is only one God, just like the prayer, just like giving, now fasting, we're told, is something, well, this is an ancient tradition. These aren't new things that Islam came up with, 1500 years ago. These are ancient traditions. Fasting has been prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you. Why? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ in Arabic, meaning so that you attain God consciousness. Again, a higher state of awareness, a higher state of mindfulness. And any Muslim who fasts regularly throughout the month will attest to the fact that they will be in an elevated spiritual state, almost automatically. Because when you can resist the temptation to reach out for this, right, which is like an essential, but you can just resist that. And you can just resist other kind of bodily temptations, and also, which is an important component of fasting, resist yourself from speaking in anger, and resist yourself from bad character, etc. Then you are developing a higher level simply of self-control, of discipline, which means that you should be more receptive also to, if you like, the message of revelation of the Qur'an. And that's why in the month of Ramadan we often call it the month of the Qur'an. This is a month in which we engage with revelation, basically remind ourselves about what God has actually told us, what He's told us, how He's told us to be, and the guidance that He has given us. The final pillar is the one of pilgrimage, Hajj, which again happens about 2 months and 10 days after Ramadan ends. It's obviously a very famous event. Probably most people who know anything about Islam, they understand the idea of the Hajj. Millions congregate in Mecca. But wherever you are, even if you're not in Mecca itself, there are things associated with that. And again, it's an Abrahamic sort of celebration, if you like. That's really what that entire event is all about. So that's really what Islam is. That's part of that. I've told you, of course, what Ramadan is. And really, to summarize, I think the key message, if you like, perhaps just to close, is contained in one short chapter of the Quran. In one short chapter of the Quran. In fact, what I'll do, just check that again. Yeah, I've got a minute and a half. That's fine. Okay, I'll do two things. So the opening chapter of the Quran, which we say at least 17 times a day. So in our prayer we say many times a day. So I'll just say the translation of this opening chapter. It's only 7 verses, just to give you an idea of effectively, and in fact, some of you who may be Christians, for example, you may be familiar with the Lord's Prayer. You'll see that there's huge parallels. So we begin by saying, "In the name of God, the Lord of mercy, the giver of mercy. All praise belongs to God, Lord of all that exists. He is the Lord of mercy, the giver of mercy, the master of the day of judgment. You alone we serve, and you alone we ask for help. Please guide us on the straight path, the path of those whom you have favored, not of those who've earned your anger, nor of those who've gone astray." And that's it. So many times, day in, day out, we praise Him, we thank, we recognize Him, we say we're committed to You, we say we really need You, we ask for guidance, and we try and stay on course. And that's that. And then another thing, just to finish off, there is a short chapter in the Quran which is just 3 verses. It is called the Surah Al-Asr, the chapter of time. In this short chapter, which summarizes, I think, the key of the really the key message of Scripture, is Wal Asr, by time. And scholars and commentators say that God takes an oath by this very time that is depleting and fleeting and going faster than any of us might care to think oftentimes. God says, indeed, human beings are in a deep state of loss. So it's a bit shocking. Hang on a second, we're all in a state of loss. Except, he says, except for those who believe, who do righteous deeds. This is a very, very famous construction in the Quran. Who are the believers? They believe, they do good deeds. Meaning, you've got to back up your claims with action that does justice to the words that you say. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. They encourage one another towards truth, and they encourage one another towards patience and steadfastness. And I think in those last 2 things, there's perhaps a message just for all people everywhere, given the increasingly confusing, sometimes divisive, complex, distorted kind of age and time that we live in. It's a time perhaps for us all just to come together and encourage one another towards truth, and encourage one another towards steadfastness and patience. And if we do that, I think hopefully, collectively, we can establish strong homes, strong communities, strong society, and one day perhaps a stronger country. Again, because it seems like it's on a bit of a slide at the moment. But hopefully, Great Britain will be made great again. I think if we could adopt some of these principles, probably we stand a good chance. All right, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for listening. And I just really want to say again a very warm welcome to all of you. I think it takes a combination of curiosity, but also a bit of courage to be here. So whether you're the curious or the courageous or both, really a very warm welcome to you, and thank you very much for being here. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Well, so the first rule of time management is actually to give yourself some contingency, which unfortunately for us means we have to wait till 8:07, not 8 o'clock to break our fast. So it's just another 5 minutes, I think. In the meantime, those who'd like to take your seats, please do so. If you want to join.
Yeah, I will.
Relax, talk amongst yourselves, and we're just going to organise ourselves, get ourselves ready for the prayer. and breaking the fast. Okay. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, even though I did have a list in front of me, was, and it is obvious actually, just for the sake of fire regulations, exits are there and there. So it's fairly obvious about what I'm saying. All right, thanks very much.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala as-salah.
Recommended